As I sit here, the memories of that chilling Easter still haunt me like a ghostly specter. It was a day that was supposed to be filled with joy and laughter, a time for celebration and family gatherings. But what unfolded on that fateful Easter Sunday was beyond anything I could have imagined, a nightmare that still sends shivers down my spine. It all began innocently enough, with the anticipation of the Easter festivities building in the days leading up to the holiday. My family had planned a small gathering at our countryside home, complete with an Easter egg hunt for the children and a lavish feast for the adults. Little did we know, the Easter Bunny had other plans in store for us. As the sun rose on Easter morning, casting a warm glow over the countryside, I could sense a strange tension in the air. It was as if the very atmosphere crackled with an energy I couldn't quite place, like the calm before a storm. The Easter egg hunt began as planned, with the children laughing and squealing with delight as they searched for hidden treasures among the bushes and trees. But as the hours passed and the afternoon sun reached its peak, a sense of unease settled over the gathering. That's when we saw it, a figure lurking in the shadows at the edge of the woods, its silhouette hunched and twisted, like something out of a nightmare. At first I thought it was just a trick of the light, a figment of my imagination brought on by the excitement of the day. But as it drew closer, I realized with a sinking feeling in my stomach that it was all too real. The creature, if creature it could be called, was like nothing I had ever seen before. Its fur was matted and dirty, its eyes glowing with a malevolent light, but it was the grin on its face, a twisted parody of the Easter Bunny's usual cheerful visage, that sent a chill down my spine. Panic erupted as the creature lunged forward, its claws slashing through the air as it descended upon us like a predator stalking its prey. We scattered in all directions, screaming and shouting for help as we fled from the monstrous creature that had invaded our holiday celebration. But no matter how fast we ran, it seemed to be everywhere at once, its presence looming over us like a dark cloud. It was as if the very essence of Easter had been twisted and perverted into something dark and sinister, something that hungered for our fear and suffering. In the end, it was only through sheer luck and desperation that we managed to escape with our lives. We fled from our countryside home, leaving behind the nightmare that had descended upon us on that cursed Easter Sunday. To this day, I cannot shake the feeling that the Easter Bunny's revenge still lingers, waiting to strike again when we least expect it. So the next time you celebrate Easter, remember this cautionary tale. For the Easter Bunny may not always be the symbol of joy and happiness we believe it to be. Sometimes it can be something far more sinister, lurking in the shadows, waiting to unleash its wrath upon unsuspecting victims. As I sit here, the memories of that fateful Easter holiday still send shivers down my spine. It was meant to be a time of joy and celebration, but what unfolded in the quaint neighborhood of Maple Street was a nightmare beyond imagination. This is the story of the terrifying events that transpired in the old house at the end of the street. It all began on a crisp Easter morning, the sun casting a golden glow over the quiet streets as families prepared for the day's festivities. Children excitedly hunted for Easter eggs in their yards, their laughter filling the air with the promise of a joyful day ahead. But as the day wore on and the sun began to set, a sense of unease settled over Maple Street. Rumors had been circulating for weeks about the abandoned house at the end of the road, whispers of strange noises and shadowy figures seen lurking in the windows. Being a curious teenager, I couldn't resist the allure of the mysterious house. So as darkness descended upon the neighborhood, I convinced my friends to join me in investigating the abandoned property under the guise of a thrilling Easter adventure. We approached the house cautiously, our hearts pounding with a mixture of excitement and fear. The old wooden boards creaked beneath our feet as we crept closer, the once grand facade now weathered and worn with age. As we entered the house, a chill swept over us, the air thick with a musty scent of decay. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling like eerie curtains, and dust motes danced in the dim light filtering through cracked windows. We explored the house room by room, our footsteps echoing through the empty halls as we searched for any signs of life. But what we found was far more terrifying than we could have ever imagined. In the attic, we stumbled upon a collection of old photographs, each one depicting a family celebrating Easter in the very same house decades ago. But as we examined the images closer, we noticed something chilling. The faces of the family members were contorted with fear, their eyes wide with horror, as if they were being watched by something unseen. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from downstairs, causing us to jump in fright. With trembling hands, we made our way back down to the ground floor, only to be met with a sight that would haunt us for the rest of our days. The walls of the house seemed to pulsate with a sinister energy, as if alive with a malevolent force. Shadows danced along the walls, twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes that seemed to mock our presence. And then we heard it, a low, guttural growl emanating from the darkness. Fear clenched at my heart as I realized we were not alone in the house. Something was watching us, something ancient and hungry. In a panic, we fled from the house, the echoes of our screams mingling with the howling wind outside. We didn't stop running until we reached the safety of our homes, where we huddled together in terror, trying to make sense of the horrors we had witnessed. To this day, I cannot shake the feeling of dread that washes over me whenever I think about that Easter holiday. It was a day that started with excitement and ended in terror, a day that forever changed the way I view the world. So the next time you pass by the old house on Maple Street, remember this cautionary tale, because in the darkness of that abandoned property, something evil lurks, waiting to claim its next victim. Sitting here with the flickering candlelight casting eerie shadows across the room, I feel compelled to share the terrifying events that unfolded in our quaint little town of Easter Hollow. It was supposed to be a time of joy and celebration, a time for families to come together and rejoice in the arrival of spring. But what happened that fateful Easter holiday turned our town into a place of darkness and fear. It all began with whispers in the wind, murmurs of something sinister lurking in the shadows of Easter Hollow. At first, we dismissed it as idle gossip, the product of overactive imaginations fueled by the superstitions of the season. But as the days passed and the whispers grew louder, we couldn't ignore the feeling of unease that settled over the town like a thick fog. It was on the eve of Easter Sunday that the first signs of trouble appeared. I remember it clearly. The air was thick with the scent of blooming flowers, and the streets were lined with colorful decorations. But beneath the facade of holiday cheer, there was an undercurrent of tension, a sense that something was terribly wrong. As night fell and the town settled into an uneasy slumber, strange things began to happen. Lights flickered and went out, leaving entire streets plunged into darkness. Shadows danced along the walls, twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes. And then came the sounds, whispers in the night, the echo of footsteps on empty streets, the mournful wail of a distant cry. At first, we tried to rationalize it away, attributing the strange occurrences to the whims of Mother Nature or the overactive imaginations of tired minds. But as the disturbances grew more frequent and more violent, we knew that something wicked was afoot in Easter Hollow. It was on Easter Sunday itself that the true horror began. As the townsfolk gathered in the town square for the annual Easter egg hunt, a sense of dread hung heavy in the air. Children laughed and played, their innocence a stark contrast to the darkness that lurked just beyond the edge of town. And then, without warning, the ground began to shake. At first it was just a slight tremor, barely noticeable beneath our feet, but then it intensified, the earth splitting open with a deafening roar. From the gaping chasm emerged a figure, tall and skeletal, its eyes glowing with a malevolent light. It was the Easter Bunny, or at least some twisted version of it. Its fur was matted and stained, its teeth sharp and gleaming in the moonlight. And as it loomed over us, its presence filled with malice and hatred, we knew that we were facing something beyond our comprehension. Panic swept through the crowd as people fled in terror, desperate to escape the clutches of the demonic creature that had invaded our town. But no matter how fast we ran, it seemed to be everywhere at once, its laughter echoing in our ears as it hunted us like prey. I don't know how we managed to survive that night, how we managed to escape the clutches of the Easter Bunny and the horrors it unleashed upon Easter Hollow. But as I sit here, surrounded by the remnants of that fateful holiday, I know one thing for certain: Easter will never be the same again. and the darkness that descended upon our town that night will haunt us for the rest of our days.